I presume this is it?
Oh, yes, we're coming onto her now. Got my floors all mixed up is all.
When did you discover her?
This morning.
She's been in here quite some time, Mr. Grandy.
You know how many buildings I look in on, son? You expect me to scour every floor every day?
I'll take it from here. If I need you, I'll come find you.
Yeah. You always stairs. Right.
Who's there?
That is mine.
Detective William Murdoch, Toronto Constabulary. Identify yourself.
Howard Phillips Lovecraft.
What are you doing here?
Visiting her, of course. Hello, my dear.
Do not touch.
I enjoy drawing.
I see that.
Reading as well. Gothic stories especially.
Did you know her?
Do you enjoy reading?
Yes. The girl, Mr. Lovecraft.
What do you enjoy reading?
Anything from science periodicals to Shakespeare. Now, young man, did you know the deceased?
Yes.
What is her name?
I don't know.
Then how is it that you know her?
From drawing her.
Once she was already dead. You never met her prior to her death?
No. We became close since. And I believe that we will meet again.
How long have you been drawing her?
I couldn't say. Time is not of consequence.
In this instance, I'm afraid it is.
A few weeks, I suppose.
And how did you come to find her?
A boy told me of her.
What is his name?
Clinton Hartley? I can tell you where to find him if you'd like.
Yes, please.
May I continue to draw her?
Decomposition was helped along by rats, making identification impossible. But I can say with some certainty that she was young. 15 or 16, perhaps.
And the cause of death?
Asphyxiation. I believe she was smothered with the handkerchief you found at the scene. I found matching particles in her lungs.
So no wounds, then?
No. I can't explain the blood on the handkerchief or in her clothes, only to say that it wasn't hers.
It belonged to her assailant?
Also, the handkerchief was doused with chloroform. She would have gone painlessly.
A compassionate killing, so she could have known her killer. She didn't arrive with this pendant, did she?
No, only the clothes that remained.
Now the pendant's gone. It could have been a figment of Mr. Lovecraft's imagination.
Yet why include it in the early drawings and not in the later ones?
Unless the killer returned to retrieve it. Mr. Hartley, how do you know Mr. Lovecraft?
He sought me out after discovering I'd borrowed his favorite book from the library. Edgar Allan Poe's The Mask of the Red Death. Have you read it?
No. When was this?
Perhaps a month ago.
So, the two of you became friends?
Yes. We're rather like-minded, don't you think? Although I admit I'm not quite as drawn to death as Howard.
And yet you informed him of the body you found in the abandoned building. When did you do that?
Shortly after we met. 4 weeks ago.
And how is it that you found this body?
I was scouring for valuables.
Yes. Is this one of the valuables that you found?
No. I've never seen that before.
Describe for me what the body looked like when you found it.
I can't. I only got close enough to make out that it was a girl by the dress. The stench kept me at a distance.
Surely your parents taught you to inform the police when you found such a thing.
I don't speak with my parents.
What an odd-looking group of youths, George.
you doing here?
Verna Jones is making me lead the discussion on this dreadful Dracula book for our reading club.
So what?
Thomas, this book is grotesque. It's positively nightmare-inducing. Verna's just doing it to spite
Who
me.
cares about Verna Jones? Pick a different book then.
And let Verna win?
What do you want me to do about it?
I would like you to escort me to the morgue to speak to Dr. Ogden. She's a learned woman, after all, and deals in the macabre.
Talk to her yourself, Margaret. I'm working.
Work? You're just sitting there like a lump.
Yes. At work.
Why do you live with your aunt, Mr. Lovecraft?
My father died from mental exhaustion after years in an insane asylum.
I'm sorry to hear that. And your mother?
She now resides in the same asylum in Providence.
Good Lord. And that's not to say that your destiny is determined.
Or perhaps it is.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Mrs. Brackenreed.
Hello.
The inspector's wife. Lovely lady.
We have a common interest.
Oh? What's that?
Blood. Salvation.
I really must be going there, man.
Your hands. These fingers.
Mr. Lovecraft, your aunt will be here very soon. Thank you, Mrs. Brackenreed.
Mrs. Brackenreed. No one but a woman can help a man when he's in trouble of the heart.
What was this Clinton Hartley lad doing in an abandoned building?
Scavenging for valuables, he
I
claims.
thought he was rich.
Rebelling against his father's wealth?
Rebelling against wealth. What's the matter with you? Bloody hell.
I don't want the others to know I'm speaking with you.
All right. Have a seat.
How did you get in here, young lady?
I know the pendant from the newspaper.
What was her name?
Ellen Woods. How did she die?
And your name?
Sarah Glass.
Miss Glass? Is this Ellen Woods?
Looks like Howard's drawings.
You know Mr. Lovecraft?
He's the newest member in our group. He draws such loving portraits.
Was Miss Woods a member of this group?
For a short while. But nobody cared for her.
Why is that?
No reason exactly, just that everyone seemed to start fighting when Ian brought her in.
Ian.
Ian Blair. Ellen was a cousin of his from Oshawa. New to Toronto, he felt obliged to welcome her, I suppose.
But she didn't fit in.
Our interests aren't shared by most.
What interests are those?
Death.
Making your parents proud, are you?
We don't care what our parents or anyone else thinks of us.
Surely you found it strange when Miss Woods suddenly disappeared.
We thought she went back to Oshawa, as she often threatened whenever anyone was hard on her. Clinton especially.
Thank you, Miss Glass. If we have further questions, we'll contact you.
If Miss Woods was a member of their group, and Miss Glass recognized her from the pennants and drawings,
Surely Clinton Hartley did as well.
then he lied to us. Bring him back in.
Yes, sir.
Hello? Is anybody there? Hello? Julia? Margaret, what are you doing here? Oh, I wanted to discuss something with you. What is it? Dracula. The book from my reading club. You're shaking like a leaf. Is that my scalpel? I thought I heard something behind that door.
The cold storage. Unless the dead have come back to life, I assure you there's no one back there.
Oh, I was certain I heard something. Oh, look.
See? What are you doing in here? Get out!
I just wanted to see her again.
Stay put. I'm calling the constables.
You're bleeding. Do you believe in destiny? Even the powers of time can be altered for a single purpose. The luckiest man who walks this earth is the one who finds true love.
Young man, get up. Get up. Get up.
Lurking around the bloody morgue like a lunatic. What's wrong with him?
He doesn't seem to see anything wrong with his behavior, no matter how misguided.
Someone needs to instill some principles. A spell in the army would sort him out quickly enough.
Or perhaps, sirs, a more gentle form of guidance might benefit the young man.
What do you know about children?
Well, I was one.
Still bloody are half the time.
So what do we do with him? We don't have enough to arrest him, and I don't feel comfortable letting him go.
Well, we can't trust his aunt to keep him under lock and key.
Keep him here?
No, I've got a better idea. Crabtree can take care of him. He seems to know everything about child rearing.
Sir, I'd be happy to. I believe this young man and myself might have more in common than you'd think. I've been through my own spells of melancholy.
Well, that's settled then. No doubt Mr. Lovecraft will leave a boy and return a man, courtesy of George Crabtree, Esquire.
Sir, I may be no miracle worker, but I believe I can help lift the dark cloud that hovers over him.
Oh, very good. Thank you, George.
And when that dark cloud lifts, sir, not only will the sun warm Mr. Lovecraft, it may also shed some light on our case.
Or it'll rain buckets like a November Monday in Yorkshire on both of you.
The sun shines, sir, even in Yorkshire.
Not on November Mondays, it doesn't.
That's meant to be Ellen?
It's a rendering by Mr. Lovecraft, yes. Surely you recognize that pendant as being hers when I showed it to you the first time.
No, I don't pay attention to pendants and dresses.
Your friend Sarah did.
Well, I suppose girls notice things that boys do not.
Or there's another explanation. You lied to me because you had something to do with her death.
I did not.
Could one of the other members of your group, then?
No.
You were the first one to discover her body by your own admission, and yet you never reported it to the police.
As I told you before, Howard said he would inform the police.
Did Mr. Lovecraft and Ellen ever meet, to your knowledge?
I don't think so.
What was Mr. Lovecraft's reaction when you first told him about the body?
Somehow he didn't seem surprised.
As if he knew about it already.
I don't need to see it. I already heard everything from Clinton.
I understand you and Ellen Woods were cousins.
Yes. When she arrived from Oshawa, I tried to include her.
But your friends didn't take to her?
Perhaps if they gave her a chance.
Where did you imagine she disappeared to?
Back to Oshawa?
When she failed to arrive, did your family not alert you?
I don't talk to my family.
Well, who do you live with, then?
I live with the others. Logan's.
Is this Logan also a member of your group?
Yes. We all keep a room at his house.
Ian, come on. I finally secured the balloon lung tester.
May I go?
This Logan's surname and address first.
Logan Smiley, 912 Wellington. Come on, Ian.
Isn't this nice? There's beauty all around us, Mr. Lovecraft. One need only open their eyes to see it.
My eyes are wide open.
Then surely you can appreciate the changing colors of the autumn leaves.
As their veins choke off the nutrition they require to remain green. Their last gasp as they desperately cling to their lifeline before their inevitable death and descent.
Then the leaves are absorbed into the ground, which provides the soil with the nutrition it needs to feed the trees, which fostered the leaves to begin with. It's a beautiful circle of life.
Decay begets more death and decay.
Look, Mr. Lovecraft, that squirrel. Surely you can't deny his industry, his preparation for winter.
No sooner than I can deny the likelihood of its death. The ground will freeze over. His own kind is likely to steal his cash as he is to rediscover it in his struggle to endure the winter.
Oh.
I understand the others spend quite a bit of their time here, Mr. Smiley. Your father doesn't mind.
He's dead. And Mother's glad I have friends to keep me occupied while she travels with her latest paramour.
Is it true that you and Ellen Woods did not get along?
None of us did.
Not even her cousin?
Ian got along with her fine.
What was the problem, exactly?
She and Clinton fought frequently, created a sense of unease amongst the group. I was happy when she left.
Is that so?
Well, I mean, before I found out she was murdered.
I assume she kept a room here as well?
Yes, it's Howard's now. Nothing of Ellen's remains.
Even so.
Do you really think that squirrel will die?
We all will. The only question is when.
I suppose you're right, you know. It's enough to make you wonder what the point of it all is. I mean, we all spend our lives just as this squirrel. Clawing, scratching, trying to get by. In the end, we all end up in the same place anyway. But surely there's beauty to be found in our daily struggles. I mean, I think that's what gives life its depth, Mr. Lovecraft!
These are all Mr. Lovecraft's belongings?
Yes. I threw out all of Ellen's things after she disappeared.
It's a love letter, sir.
For never was there a story of more woe than ours. What's in the bard? Bloody pretentious.
Indeed. It's filled with youthful angst, and the language is melodramatic and dense. But the sentiment is unmistakable.
It's signed by Miss Woods, but not directly addressed to anyone, nor is it dated.
No, sir. I found it in Mr. Lovecraft's room, amongst his personal effects. To my love, although generic, could have been Miss Wood's pet name for Mr. Lovecraft.
Well, if you're right, this establishes a relationship between the two of them while Miss Woods was still alive.
And Mr. Lovecraft's perverted fascination with death alone could provide motive.
He prefers the dead to the living. Maybe that extended to his most intimate relationships.
Julia.
Doctor, been in the midnight oil?
I was taking a final look at Miss Wood's body when I discovered something rather disturbing.
What is it?
Her left ring finger has been severed. It happened since she arrived.
Mr. Lovecraft.
Crabtree!
Sir.
Bring me Lovecraft.
I can't, sir. I lost him.
You lost him?
Sir, I've looked all over Toronto.
Do you believe in destiny? That even the powers of time can be altered for a single purpose? That the luckiest man who walks this earth is the one who finds true love? Oh dear. Stop talking to Amina, you foolish woman. Walk away. Hello? John? Is that you? Thomas? Hello?
Do you like it, Mrs. Brackenreed?
You should knock his block off. Margaret didn't get a wink of sleep last night, which means I didn't either.
Sir, he's just a boy. No older than your son, John.
John doesn't go around spooking housewives with severed body parts.
I understand your frustration, but should you do anything rash, it could compromise our investigation.
Get a confession and be done with him.
Sir.
I do not like this room.
No one does. Please have a seat, Mr. Lovecraft. Miss Woods is now missing a finger, and Mrs. Brackenreed has an extra.
Yes, I gave it to her.
After trespassing into the city morgue and severing it, do you not see how completely inappropriate that is?
No.
I found this in your room at Mr. Smiley's.
What is it?
It's a correspondence from Miss Woods to you, despite the fact that you said you didn't know her.
I never said that.
Correction, that you knew her only in death. Well, this proves otherwise. It was found in your room, Mr. Lovecraft.
May I keep it then?
No, you may not keep it. It's evidence. Evidence that, along with other factors, strongly suggests that you killed Miss Woods. You.
To me, she is not dead, but eternal.
Did you kill her?
No.
Did you know her prior to her death?
No.
Did you sever her finger post-mortem?
Yes.
But you didn't kill her to begin with.
No, but surely wish I was there when she passed from this dimension to the next.
Den die Toten reiten schnell.
I do not speak German.
For the dead travel fast. I know all of Dracula.
There's someone else I'd like you to speak with, in a setting that you may find more agreeable.
Do you know the difference between right and wrong, Mr. Lovecraft?
That cannot be answered without context.
Is it wrong to mutilate a dead body?
I could ask you the same question.
I conduct postmortems as a means to an end. You severed the finger from a corpse for no apparent reason.
She did not mind.
Do you believe it's wrong to kill someone?
Many killings are justified. You should know.
Would you have been justified in killing Miss Woods?
If it pleased her.
Why would it please her?
May I speak with Mrs. Brackenreed instead?
I'm afraid you'll have to make do with me. You were in a relationship with Miss Woods. You knew her, did you not?
I've always known her. Through eternity.
Your diagnosis, Julia?
It would be premature to make one, William. He's certainly disturbed, but I don't believe him to be insane. All I'm prepared to say is that he has trouble delineating between reality and imagination.
But is he capable of murder?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Why? The love letter was one of devotion.
Trying to apply logic to the circumstances may not be helpful in this instance, William.
Frankly, I don't know what to do with him.
He seems to be more at ease expressing himself creatively. If you continue to hold him, perhaps you should provide him with a new notebook.
Do you believe he's a murderer?
I don't yet know.
It has been a difficult time since he arrived.
Since he arrived?
Yes. Since Howard joined us from Providence 5 weeks ago.
Mr. Lovecraft has only been in Toronto 5 weeks.
Mr. Lovecraft, I have your supper, though you hardly deserve it after abandoning me in the park.
Can you not see that I'm preoccupied?
What are you writing?
An account of recent events.
You know, I myself am a writer, an experienced one at that. And I can personally attest that one should never try to write on an empty stomach.
You're worse than my aunt.
Well, you're worse than most of the guests we have in this place. That's saying something.
I am sorry about the park constable.
I highly doubt that.
Something isn't quite lining up here, Julia.
Neither are these buttons, I'm afraid.
As best you could tell, Ellen Woods was killed approximately 6 weeks ago. I've just learned from Mr. Lovecraft's aunt that he only arrived in Toronto 5 weeks ago. So, if you are right, which you usually are, and Mr. Lovecraft's aunt is telling the truth, then it's impossible that the two ever even met.
Indeed.
Well, one thing is certain. Ellen Woods did write this letter, but perhaps it was intended for someone else.
Planted in Mr. Lovecraft's room?
Yes, and if that's the case, then perhaps someone else was in a relationship with Ellen Woods, and they could very likely be the killer.
There. That should hold.
Thank you, Julia.
Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe one of you was romantically involved with the deceased. Now, who was it?
If any of you know anything, you should speak up.
The letter from Miss Woods that I found in Mr. Lovecraft's room. It was intended for someone else. I believe that person deliberately placed the letter in Mr. Lovecraft's room to incriminate him. Now, who was it? Let's go, George.
Thomas, I believe I'll come in to work with you tomorrow.
Why?
I can stay stay home alone. He's everywhere.
Murdoch, where are we at?
Well, sir, Oh, Mrs. Brackenreed.
Margaret insisted on coming in with me today, despite Mr. Lovecraft no longer posing any threat to her. Murdoch, I can't stress how vital it is that you wrap this case up.
Yes, sir. In fact,
Excuse me. Inspector Thomas Brackenreed? Could you speak up? I can't hear you.
Is the detective there?
Detective Murdoch?
It's Sarah Glass. I think I know something important. In that letter you were asking about.
Yes, Miss Glass.
You're back already? No, wait!
Miss Glass, are you there? Miss Glass, are you all right? Hello? Hello? Who's there?
What just happened?
Explain yourselves.
We just got home. We found her like this, I swear it.
We were buying tobacco.
Where's Logan Smiley?
I don't know. He was still here with her when we left.
She was trying to sell something over the telephone. What was it?
I don't know, sir. Honest. What happened? Sarah.
Where have you been, Mr. Smiley?
I was at the cemetery.
Doing what?
Worshipping the dead.
Can anyone corroborate this?
And also the bloody dead.
Perhaps the gravedigger.
Are you trying to be funny?
No. What happened to her?
One of you lot killed her.
Sir, Logan Smiley was indeed wandering the cemetery grounds at the time of Miss Glass's murder.
And Mr. Lovecraft was in our cells. What of the other two?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, sir. The shopkeeper confirmed that Ian Blair did indeed buy tobacco off him. He even noted the time as he was about to close for lunch. But he said Mr. Hurley wasn't with him.
So, the two of them left Mr. Smiley's together, leaving Miss Glass behind. But then Mr. Hartley turned back to prevent her from speaking with us.
Right then, I'll pick up Clinton Hurley.
Thank you, George. Tell me again, where were you at 12:40 p.m., Mr. Hartley?
That's around when Ian and I went for tobacco.
You were never with Mr. Blair at the tobacco shop, as you initially claimed.
I was. I can even show you the purchase receipt.
Surely given to you by your best friend. You see, the shopkeep confirmed that Mr. Blair did indeed come in and purchase tobacco from him. But not you.
I waited outside.
The shopkeep also said that this was the last transaction before closing for lunch. He stepped outside, locked the door, and saw Mr. Blair walking away. Alone.
No.
You returned to the house shortly after leaving and found Miss Glass on the telephone. There was something Miss Glass needed to say to me. Very likely that it was you she saw planting the love letter in Mr. Lovecraft's room.
I didn't.
So you murdered her with the nearest implement at hand. The telephone.
My father's gonna kill me.
It was you that was in a relationship with Miss Woods. And you murdered Miss Glass to conceal the fact that you had murdered your own sweetheart. Why? Why kill your own sweetheart?
I don't know.
You loved her, but I am told that you fought frequently.
Yes.
I know you smothered her. But where did the blood come from? It covered her dress and the handkerchief that was found at the scene. Because it wasn't her blood.
I can't recall.
Not something one would easily forget.
While I was smothering her, she threw her head back and it struck my nose. I used the same handkerchief to stop the bleeding.
A confession isn't good enough for you.
The one from Miss Glass's murder is.
What about Miss Woods?
Clinton Hartley claims that he used the handkerchief that was found at the scene to stop his bleeding nose.
So?
That handkerchief was doused in chloroform. It would have knocked him out as surely as it did Miss Woods. He couldn't possibly have held it to his nose.
And only the killer would know it.
Therefore, her sweetheart could not have been Clinton Hartley.
William, I found something interesting. I checked in on Mr. Lovecraft, and he shared his new notebook with me.
More bloody drawings?
No, Inspector. He wrote a detailed account of his experience of late. Quite a fine writer, it turns out.
Does it have any bearing on our case?
Well, the letter you found in his room? What we perceive simply as a love letter, he perceived as something much more. Mr. Lovecraft believes it was written to Ian.
Yes. They were in love, but they also planned to meet on the other side.
The other side?
The other side of life.
Death.
Yes.
Together we shall go.
For never was there a story of more woe than ours. Recognize the passage?
Yes, I love it when you read Shakespeare to me. It's Romeo and Juliet.
And what did Romeo and Juliet do?
They both committed suicide in the name of love.
Precisely. Not only is this a veiled suicide note, but it's a suicide pact between two star-crossed lovers.
How I envy them.
Yet only one body was found at the scene.
Well, what of all that blood?
I will be with you soon, Baba.
Don't leave me.
You're under arrest for the murder of Miss Ellen Woods.
I miss her so.
Don't say anything, Ian.
I cannot stand to be without her.
The pendant.
May I take it with me to the gallows? So that I may give it to her again once we are reunited on the other side.
I suppose being a youth isn't as simple as it used to be.
Was it ever simple, William? Think about our friends Romeo and Juliet.
Indeed.
It's really about salvation. Huh? Take that, Verna Jones.
How blessed are some, whose lives have no fears, no dreads, to whom sleep comes nightly and brings nothing but sweet dreams.
What do you want?
You look beautiful, my dear.
I had a horrible nightmare, Thomas. I had blood coming down my eyes and tentacles in my hair.
It's that bloody book you're reading before bedtime. Stop reading it.
It wasn't the book. It was Mr. Lovecraft.
Don't you worry about Mr. Lovecraft. He's going back to Providence tomorrow.
Even so, he's in my mind. He's in my soul.
He's not in your mind and he's not in your soul. Just go back to sleep, yeah? Come on.
Best of luck in Providence, Mr. Lovecraft.
You're missing a button.
Keep your nose clean, son.
I plan to concentrate on my writing upon my return. Mr. Crabtree offered some useful encouragement. I do wonder what it would be like to look at the world through his eyes instead of mine. But I fear that will never be.
Well, don't let that discourage you. You keep...
Would you give this to her?
Everything all right, sir?
Margaret can never know of this.
appears to have fallen and broken her